Hey everybody, my name is Amy, and if you're new to this channel, I make videos about running and sometimes music on my YouTube channel. As I plan what races I'm going to do next year, I thought I'd not only share my ideas for races, but also some tips to help you yourself choose your next running race. There are so many races out there, so I have a few things that might help you narrow it down. So let's talk about choosing your next running race. I actually did a poll with some of my running friends and I asked them to rank in the order of importance the following things. So I said location, course, friends doing the race, reputation, and cost. I know there's so many other factors that go into planning what race you're going to do, but I thought these were probably some of the main ones that influence what race people choose. But before I give you the answers that people chose, I thought I'd go through each individual thing on the list. So the first one is location. First off, how close is the race to you? Is it really easy to get to? These are some major things, because if it's like a big trip and like several time zones and you just only have like 2 days like of vacation or to get there, then I might not consider doing like a big like Australian race or something, or wherever somewhere far from you. That's very far from me. There's some races like Chicago this year, thankfully was on Canadian Thanksgiving, so we didn't have to take like the Monday off and for traveling, so that was really handy. But not all races are like that, and if you have a job that you can't really take many days off or really can't miss, then you don't want to go somewhere far, as I just said. Location can also affect like the weather. If it's going to be super hot there, it's going to be super cold. Like these are other factors that can be affected by where the race is actually held. There's a lot of races out there, but not all of them are really close to an airline. So if you are flying there, you might have to rent a car, which is an added expense, or maybe you can share a car with people. But yeah, like how easy and how more expensive is it going to be to get to these races? The next thing is the course. Especially if you're going for a PB or a personal best, you might want to get a course that is a little flatter or a net downhill and not something that's like super hilly, like Boston or I think San Francisco. There's like a lot of courses that are quite hilly, so if you're going for a fast time, I don't know, maybe you're really good at hills, not like myself, I'm not very good at them, but yeah, that's just something to consider. And if the course goes on gravel, for myself personally, I can't run as fast on gravel, and it just feels like you're working a little extra hard, as I run on gravel all the time doing workouts, so I know it's really hard, but that's just something to think about. If you want to run fast, a net downhill course is great, though you also have to be careful with those not to destroy your quads because you're going downhill a lot. So like Chicago was great, like it was flat, there was a few little bumps, but like nothing major. So some people need a little bit of change in the course to because they find flat really hard. But what about you? Are you a super strong hill runner, or do you prefer flat downhill? There's so many options. Another thing is the course an out and back? Is it from point to point? Because so often if it's point to point, there might not be as many people cheering throughout the race. Boston's lucky because there's a lot of people there, but there are some races that it gets pretty lonely if you're just kind of not going out and back, and yeah, that could be really hard, especially if you're a person who really needs like the people cheering to get you going and need that motivation. And out and back is nice because then you can kind of see people coming around. That's how Liam saw me in Chicago, and yeah, it's just like nice to see other runners sometimes, but maybe you don't need that. Or if you like distraction and you want a super scenic route, maybe there are some courses in Europe that look really cool, like Paris, and yeah, just some other races that are just really beautiful. And if you need that like distraction from the misery of running a marathon or whatever distance you're doing, that could be a factor to think about. Personally, when I'm racing, I'm like tunnel vision. Like I really just probably looking at the ground too much, but I barely see what's going around me, and yeah, I really don't see anything. So that doesn't really, I could be running anywhere, honestly. But yeah, maybe you need that like scenery and beautiful, and that's totally awesome, but I don't see anything. The next thing is, do you have friends running this race? Having friends to train with for a race is so key. There's nothing worse than being off from people and like doing these big workouts while people have smaller workouts, and just being alone and isolated in your workout, and really hard to like motivate yourself to do these big runs when nobody else is there. Trust me, it was really hard building for Chicago, because again, Liam and I took turns doing our workouts with the group, and yeah, there were some workouts that I was alone and it was, yeah, really hard. But if you know people doing like the training but also going to the race, that is a game changer. I once did Ottawa and I stayed with a friend, which was awesome, but I knew no one at the race. And after I did the race, and it was a really my worst race ever, and I just remember sitting there afterwards, like called Liam, called my mom, and I was just so sad because I was all alone, didn't know anybody, wasn't part of a running group, and yeah, it wasn't fun. But yeah, if you're traveling with friends, you could also like carpool, or you can bunk together in a hotel or Airbnb, and that can save you a lot of money. As I said, when you have friends to train with, especially in the winter and it's -20°C out and you don't want to go outside, but you know your friends are out there gonna meet you doing a workout or a run, it's just a huge motivator to get outside. You can kind of commiserate together and just like do these workouts, and it's just, again, so much better to have people to train with and race with too, if you're lucky to have someone your pace doing the race as well. Or if you're not training with people, but maybe you know friends in other cities doing that race, that's another option too. I remember doing Boston 2021, and I had friends who were doing it from Toronto, and it was so fun to meet up with them there in Boston, so that's another option. The next thing on the poll was reputation. How well known is this race? Have you had friends who had run this race, and how was their experience? Is the race known for being organized and having enough water and gels at stations, and just smooth overall? It's nice when you haven't done the race, but you know lots of other people who've done it. That just makes me feel a lot better, because if you're spending a lot of money, which you will spend a lot of money on races, you want to make sure that it's going to be a good race. So the reputation is huge. Does the race have a reputation of having good swag? That could be also a motivator, or helping you decide on what race to do. Some races, I wish they just didn't give you the shirt or gave you an option of opting out of the shirt, because I've gotten some terrible race shirts and I use them for sleeping, or when I was pregnant I would wear them because I would fit in nothing else. But yeah, often I just don't want to waste my money on this not great stuff. But there are some races, like Chicago was awesome, Boston was amazing, and some of the Toronto waterfront was good. But yeah, just knowing has good swag is really nice. Is the race known in the city, and is it well received? Sometimes in Toronto, I know people would get angry at another road race, and yeah, there'd be sometimes close calls with cars, and that could have been the race's fault. But anyways, just is the city, organized about this race, and just are there ways to get around like transit and all that fun stuff? Again, this goes with how organized the race is, and you want to make sure that, again, if you're spending all this money, you don't want them to not have enough water stations or enough like people, volunteers, or just being just a complete chaos. Like, it's just, that would be so stressful and just such a, so disappointing after you put months and weeks and hours of training in only to go to the race and it just be kind of a gong show. So anyways, just knowing the reputation of the race, I think, is important. How much is this going to cost? As I mentioned, is this race in your city? Is it in another city? Is it another like state or province, another country, another continent? These all can add up. Sometimes flying can be cheaper than driving, especially with gas prices. Major marathons are awesome, but they're also super expensive. For us, that's something that we can't afford to do 2 majors now, and now that both of us are doing them, that would be just so much money like in the spring and fall. So we just have to pick and choose, and that's fine, but just, we can't afford to do them every race, and that's, I wish, but oh well. However, if cost is not a big deal for you, that's totally fine. That's awesome. Like, you can then you can use the other factors to think about what race you want to do. One idea is to use this race as part of your vacation. Honestly, races are such a great way to explore a new city or a new area, and you just do the race, and then you can take your vacation after and do whatever you want, because A, you're not going to be running and worrying about training, and B, you can do whatever you want if you can still walk after your race. But yeah, you're so free after doing your race. I probably wouldn't recommend doing sightseeing before your race, especially if you're going for a PB, but if not, you can do whatever you want. But that might be a really great way to incorporate your vacation in a race, so it doesn't cost that much more. You're just, doing the race and then your vacation. You can travel cheaper, if you, as I said, carpool, find some good flight deals, don't book the last minute like we kind of did. But yeah, there's ways to do things more affordable. Just, sometimes, again, races can cost a lot, so that's something to keep in mind. This might be one of the most important factors for myself personally at this time, but it really does make a difference especially coming back from having Luke. I knew I couldn't do a race like right after I had him, so I had to kind of plan ahead of when I thought I was going to be recovered from having a baby. It's kind of unfair for women because we have to carry the child and then recover from having the child, and that's just a lot more extra stress on our body, and that means we can't just race immediately after having a child. So yeah, it's just a little unfair, but oh well. We just have to think about that a little bit more if we're having children and going to our next race. Another thing for timing is how close is a race to your goal race. If you're doing a tune-up race, you don't want it too close, or else you might negatively affect your goal race. Or if you're doing a race like a marathon, how much time do you have to recover and then start your build for your next race. Sometimes races can be really late, like in May, or if it's a June race, and you want to do a September race, that's pretty close. So that's just something to think about. Another thing for timing is how busy are you at work? Do you have the proper time to actually put into a marathon build? There's no worse feeling than not being prepared at race day. If you have to skip a lot of runs, or you're just scrambling and stressed trying to just cram it all in, that's just not a nice feeling, and you probably, you might get a good race, but it's just a lot of time, and there's a lot of money again into races, and I would just wait until you have the time to do a full marathon. Maybe you can think about doing a 5K or 10K where the demands, the distance isn't as long and the time that you have to go out and run. So these are just, again, things to think about. This kind of goes with work, but if you're in a busy season of children, if your children are in a lot of activities, it's just, it's hard to fit everything in. It's impossible to be completely balanced, and sometimes you have to sacrifice one thing for another thing. And my husband and I really, running is a huge passion of ours, but of course our son comes first. But also I have to exercise to be a good mom and a wife and to a person in general. I need to take care of myself, and part of that is running and exercising and feeling good. So running is important for me just in general. So, but again, you just have to be careful not to put too much on your plate and just feel like you're scrambling, and that's really hard. So I know you've all been waiting for the poll results, so here they are. So in first place, Friends came first. I didn't see that coming. Actually, I'm not surprised and a little surprised. So Friends came first, and then second was The Course. Then kind of in tie for third place was Location, and then fourth was Reputation, and then Cost was the last thing that people thought about. So I thought that was really cool. For me, I think my order would have been Course, Friends, Cost, Location, and Reputation. What about you? What would be your order of ranking of things? Let me know in a comment below. So my plans are still kind of in the air. I really would love to do a spring marathon and a fall marathon, because marathon is life and I love doing marathon builds. And I feel like if I did a half build, I would be well, that's all the kilometers I have to do weekly. So anyways, I really was thinking, initially Mississauga, but I think Liam and I are going to do Jersey City. Our friends did it last year, so Reputation, they had a good time. So using their kind of feedback, we're thinking of doing that race. We know we have to fly to it, but it's like pretty much would be the same cost of going to Fredericton, which is, you know, another local race that's in New Brunswick, and you know, we could drive to it, but you have to get a hotel there anyway, and yeah, you have to pay for gas. So we're thinking that Jersey City would be the best, you know, spring race. There aren't as many spring races, which we find really hard because, yeah, like all the good ones or all the ones that we want to do are in the fall. So that makes choosing a fall race hard, but yeah, Jersey City for the spring. And then Liam hasn't actually done the Toronto waterfront, I think that's, or the Toronto TCS race, whatever it's called now, in October, and that's of course where we used to live. So I think that'd be really fun to go back, see some friends, and race on the course is our old training ground. So I think it'd be really, really fun. So since he's doing it, I think I will also do it, and it would be fun because I haven't done it since 2019 and I would love to race it again. How about you? What races are you planning to do next year? Please, again, tell me. I would love to know. Or if you have any recommendations, that would also be really awesome to hear. I hope you found these tips helpful, and let me know what you think or what you take into consideration when choosing a running race. I think that would be really helpful for myself and other people too. Happy running and training, and I'll see you next time.